Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we have the unfortunate news that TV personality Regis Philbin has passed away at the age of 88 due to natural causes. Um, Now, I think that a lot of people, probably in my age bracket, like the 25 to 40-year-olds, are probably going to know who Regis Philbin is in a larger sense than maybe some younger people. So I'm going to go over a little bit because he had a very long career. He had a nearly 60-year career, um, or maybe a little over 60 years actually. But he was in television for a very long time. He never made the jump over to big screen films other than maybe cameo roles as himself. I think that I can remember maybe him doing a few of those. But other than that, he really stayed on the small screen. But a lot of people just like to say, like, okay, he's a daytime television host. Back when daytime TV was like a legitimate thing, which was probably like back in the 90s, most likely, and maybe the early 2000s, that was mainly because of Regis Philbin. He was somebody that kind of pioneered the morning shows through the 70s. He slowly worked his way up until he started getting, he had Regis and Kathy Lee, and then eventually it was Regis and Kelly. But that morning show, which I think is almost close to ending at this point. I can't remember if they've canceled it at this point or not after Kelly Ripa left. But him doing that for as long as he did, that was the morning show for a long time. And a lot of people like to say, okay, morning shows, just kind of light, fluffy stuff. It's like, yeah, but a lot of people that, I think their main audience is usually probably something like housewives, things along those lines. People that are home at like 9 or 10 in the morning, or people that work nights or something like that. But I think that's their main demographic is, the suburban housewife, more or less. So you kind of want that light fluff stuff. It doesn't really, you don't want to go heavy on somebody when they're at home just trying to relax or doing something. You don't want to just drop a bunch of whole stuff about the Middle East on them. That's really not, it's not the purpose of the show. That's usually reserved on networks anyway for the evening shows. But the thing is, Regis also worked on, the Johnny Carson show and the Steve Allen show and a bunch of other early late night talk shows. Originally, he tried breaking in on late night, and I think this is the more important thing about Regis Philbin to kind of remember is not necessarily his accomplishments, but how he was able to get there. Because this guy got shot down so many times before he finally hit pay dirt. And it was really on the morning show circuit that he hit pay dirt first, at least as far as that part of his career was concerned. He was on some morning shows, and I forget which one it was. It was in California, but it was one of the. He had failed a few times before that, and he also failed at late night before that as well. So just a whole list of failures until he got that break, and then after that, he managed to work his way up the ladder. That's kind of the idea. Is like he didn't give up. He didn't just say no, I'm not going to do this anymore after the first or second or probably even the third or fourth time he failed or got screwed over. And he kept going, and he wound up becoming a mainstay in many people's living rooms for, those morning hours where he was on television. And I think that's more the thing that we should take from this is that, his perseverance as a person and as far as his career orientation was concerned as well. Now, the other thing that a lot of people know him from, and probably what I know him the most from, was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And that was one of those first really big kind of quiz game shows. It always seemed legitimate. Almost nobody won. There was like a few. I think there was only like 2 or 3 people on that show that won over the course of time that it was actually on. But it was a great premise because it's like almost nobody wins, and you're giving away $1 million, and it's really nothing. Nothing too special. Basically, I think they go through the same kind of ringer process that Jeopardy does, where they just have these mock games or mock questionnaires, and they have to keep passing them in order to advance. Over a period of, I think, weeks or months. But the show itself was legitimately nail-biting. You kind of, they had a lot of those tricks where they had that whole room where they had that dynamic lighting that was around the little podium, and it was even kind of weird for the people that I guess were answering the questions because the spotlight is literally on them. Everything else is blacked out in the room. Their loved ones are there. in the room watching them do this, and they're isolated from everybody else. It's literally just that whoever is the contestant and Regis Philbin reading them the questions. And the other thing is his delivery too. I always really loved his delivery when it came to actually answering those questions. In terms, when they answer them like "You are correct," he always used to give that little kind of moment there where he'd kind of pause and make you think, oh, what's he going to say? And then he'd say something, Sometimes it would be like, oh, I'm sorry, you the wrong answer. This was the right answer. Thank you for playing. Have a nice day. The people also had the ability to just walk away. And it was a good game. It had some decent rules to it. It was probably the most popular game show out when, at the time that he was hosting, it was probably the most popular game show on television. And not to mention the fact that there was kind of a lesser amount of game shows. That had something to do with the creations of some other kind of spin-off ones. They had Weakest Link, which basically tried to do, he had his whole catchphrase of, who wants to be a millionaire? That was his whole opener for that whole thing. And then they kind of did the same thing with Weakest Link, where you are the weakest link. Goodbye. That stupid, that stupid thing. And I remember that they specifically got like this staunch British lady to host the show, just to make it seem like more condescending and demanding. But that's the other thing, is that Regis Philbin was very likable as that host. He didn't feel menacing. He was very neutral in the way that he presented the questions. There was nothing that he was doing that didn't seem like he was just putting on a show, which I think was nice. And I think that that's kind of what carried that show forward, in addition to the format that it was in. But that's where a lot of people remember him from, was that show. Really, that and the morning show, the Regis with whoever, or Regis and Kathy Lee, Regis and Kelly, those shows. But that's the thing, is you got to remember, is that he worked. He actually holds the Guinness Book of World Records, I believe, currently for the most amount of time spent in front of on television in front of a camera. It's something like 16,000 hours. That just shows how much work this guy put in over the course of his entire, career. Was that you have 16,000 hours? That is literally almost like a decade of your life on screen. That is ridiculous. I didn't actually calculate how long it would be. That would be something interesting to actually know. I probably should have done that before I recorded the video, but that's just a huge body of work. It's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of not Vic Morrow, Dick Miller, where he was in so many movies. It's like ridiculous how many movie credits the guy has. He had like 170 something, and he had just everything. He was in Corman stuff. He was in James Cameron stuff. It's just somebody that was always working, and that's really what Regis was. He was somebody. He was always working. He was always there. It was almost like a mainstay, because he was on in the morning. He was on at night when he was on the game shows at the same time. You couldn't turn on one of those networks during the day or at night and not see him in some fashion. Because the other thing was, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That was on in syndication everywhere as soon as it could be. So he was on all these other channels too that were interconnected with, I believe it was ABC. So you had him on like ABC Family, any of the other stuff. I don't think they did anything with ESPN at the time or anything like that. But he did appear on other networks in syndication because of that. So he just dominated the mainstream airwaves for the time period, when he was on both of those shows. So again, it's something that you got to take in perspective of, most people just know him as either a morning show host or a game show host, but he did a lot of stuff in order to kind of help the talk shows progress, which now they have regressed into dirt again. So I guess I should at least give him points for trying. But that's just me. But I want to know what you think. Do you have anything special that you remember Regis Philbin from, whether it's his game shows or his talk shows, anything like that? Put that in the comments below. And as usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?